Video. What the fuck happenings in YouTube? I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Not traditionally religious, but certainly not atheist community, and such fun things like that. Anyway, other fun like that? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, people. Yuck. So, really not much happening. Yeah, nothing. Actually. Yeah, really not much. I remember Mike and V did make some videos about art and stuff, which was nice, the art school stuff or whatever, so it wasn't bad. The old fans recovering still from the giving birth to the movie, so to speak. And, there's just really isn't much going on. I'm still doing the physics thing, blah, blah, blah. More on that maybe later. Yeah, well, I'll make a physics. I mean, Piro's insane. He had his room today, but it was just terribly tedious Muslim crap and then race crap and, well, whatever. I just don't find him, there's no these aren't practical solutions. Well, we'll take all the money from the rich people and we'll give it to the poor people, and that'll make all the poor people rich people. Somehow that'll build character in people, and that's not the way you do it. So I don't think that'll work. It's this whole meme battle, and yeah, unfortunately, in a bug fight, having character is a liability. And so as long as we have a world where you can be a bug and win, the bugs are going to take over the world. Rich bug, poor bug. So, this is truth. I mean, you can't placate either one. You can't in any way feed or support either parasite. So anyway, not enough of that. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, the pragmatic solutions are useless. you gotta have unfortunately, you gotta. It's the point where you just got to draw some lines in the sand. Just say, I'll only let you silly poor people make this big a mess, no bigger. And these assholes are trying to do exactly the opposite. I mean, eventually there's just not going to be any advantage to being a citizen of the United States of America. Citizenship will be completely all disadvantages. No advantages whatsoever. It's just silly. Anyway, I mean, clearly our votes don't mean anything, so losing your vote doesn't mean much. That's for fuck's sake, sure. So anyway, it's all very dismal. Speaking of dismal, all very dismal. So, Carrie McCarthy has been doing this gen cancer patient thing. Oh, it's just so horrid. I mean, shit. Life is just, I mean, it's just, I just find it, ludicrous that this is, well, whatever, I just don't get it. So anyway, it's this little saga of the woman has got 4th-stage cancer, and I don't know what her backstory is, why she didn't get regular therapies, or maybe she did and they failed, or whatever. Well, anyway, so she's stuck with this, not in a very good condition, so now they're doing the desperation thing, which I've been there and seen that, and it's not a pretty picture at all. Really, the Mexico, fly-by-night crazy shit. Coffee enemas and shoot urine into your tumors and all kinds of other nonsense, and you're just like, why, this is fucking voodoo. And, out of what? What is this desperation? I mean, when you had something for a year, you figure, well, you've had enough time now to get a grip on it, and know you're fucked. I mean, it's pretty much writing it all over your existence, and, people think they eat a few carrots, everything's going to be okay. Well, it's just not going to work. And, you know, the whole money thing, you know, spending money on it, and you're just, you know, it's like the whole, you know, you hear people having double lung transplants, all kinds of other silly shit, and you're just saying, you know, how many people in this world die because of a lack of $50 a year? And I just can't see any rationality to any of this nonsense. Sorry, I don't want to call it nonsense. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's... I just don't know why there can't be any kind of practical perspective here, you know. It just doesn't, I just don't, I don't know, you know. I mean, I really have no expectation that I would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on dying. It just doesn't sound like a good investment at all. And anyway, this doesn't make much sense. I just don't like the whole smell of it. But whatever. Too bad. I don't like it. So, really isn't much else. Maybe I'll just do an Anaconda video just to finish it off here. And it's pretty much been a slow week and whatnot. Yeah, I will eventually get back to doing something interesting, I suspect. This a lot of stuff, little this, little of that. You know, I've got to get this, do this physics thing and all that right now, and I, you know, I just find it is sort of interesting, just because, you know, you start thinking about all the different things, and there's so many things you can think about. There's so many parts of it that haven't been done right. And you're just like, yeah, there's a lot to be done right here, a lot to work on. So anyway, so it's a little bit compelling of my time, you know, well, the time I have where I'm not dismal and horrid. Fighting with this thyroid thing is really irritating. Yeah, so whatever. I mean, life is just, you know, the people, it's harder and harder to understand how people can think living is at all a good idea. But of course, it's just when you're, you know, when you're 22 and blah 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 and blah blah blah, then everything looks like, oh yeah, this is all doable. But, you know, as the shit gets deeper, you really, wow, it gets so obvious that, oh man, you don't want to mess with this shit. So obvious. So let's see, hate 8, the problem of evil. So he's, you know, just obsessing about evil, so we'll talk a little bit about evil, I guess. I don't know, I have a choice. I guess I could talk a little physics. You know, just, I'm going to do a response to some comments on a Piro video, just because Piro's comments are so funny. So incomprehensibly, you know, mushy. But just this idea of truth and understanding things. Yeah, and, you know, the burden of, you know, sometimes what equals proof, you know, this beyond a reasonable doubt kind of standard, or what we know to be true. And I guess I don't have anything more to add on it. I mean, you know, I guess the funny thing that came up was this guy was in some way defending the idea that Piro should actually engage and read the document and then make actual relevant arguments about what I've said that's so wrong. And but he was arguing, Nicky Tech or something, that somehow I had said eliminate all the math. And, you know, I never argued against math. I mean, I love the relationships that can, you know, you can encompass in a mathematical equation. You know, you know, I studied probability in high school, found that fascinating. So I don't have anything against math, and I just don't need to provide any. The math and the theory are not the same thing. Okay, the theory of what causes a relationship and the relationship are not the same thing. I mean, the relationship between velocity and time exists. Einstein says it happens because time is a dimension and it bends. I say velocity changes metabolism, and the change is in proportion to this time factor, in the sense that the metabolism is degraded and runs slower. That's why there's some idea of time dilation, but it's not, obviously it's not time dilation. It's just that, it's just this kind of silly. You say to yourself, oh, this is what they fell for. The clock runs slower, so now people talk like time has changed. And time doesn't change. Clock runs slower does not mean time changed. Just means clock runs slower, and you move slower, because your metabolism is slower. Just getting the idea of everything happening a little bit slower, like you just blinking out. Like for every 10 seconds you lose a second of existence. It's just gone. You're just, for that little 1 second of the 10 seconds, you'd get the idea that you could end up losing 10% more time to get everything done, because you have to every 10 seconds. And then if you go the speed of, half the speed of light, you might be doing that every other second. So, but that's all it is. It's nothing. There's no dimension that changes. There's nothing happening. You're just becoming retarded, in your function. And but no, instead we have to have the totem pole and the voodoo and the mush, and it's just all over. All these people, like I said, this is the problem. The atheists they're not atheists, and they believe in some sort of silly underlying special powers and special initiating forces and blah blah blah. I mean, they really just don't take evolution at all seriously. I suppose that's the key to it, right? I mean, you're not really an atheist until you acknowledge the fact, that there's nothing intelligent in evolutionary design. It's a mechanical system. It starts for pretty much nothing organized. And that the organization is just some sort of basic thing, of as simple as a magnet's attraction and repulsion, a force that simple, and that's all you need to throw into this little box with this crap, and it will evolve into moldy shit. I mean, it will evolve into something. So anyway, but yeah, you're just seeing it all over the place. I mean, and everything's just such a pile of crap. I mean, this whole argument about the two-slit experiment, nobody can seem to even describe the experiments accurately. What actually is known to be the results of the experiments. It's just, you're just like, we don't even have a starting line for one of the most important, the irony is, this is one of the fundamental experiments in terms of, these famous principles like Heisenberg and and quantum mechanics itself is, and wave theory of light, and all this is all based on this experiment in a sense. And when you see how little care has been given to analyzing it, you're saying, and now you people are going to believe them when they talk about Higgs bosons and all this other kind of crap. They can't even pay strict attention to this experiment. You trust them to do these highly complex experiments without piling a bunch of presumptions into them? And so I guess that's where you get things like inventing things like dark matter. And well, anyway, it's really bad. The physics is not science. Really bad. So anyway, just throwing that in. I wanted to say something deeper and more profound than that, and I just didn't quite do it. But mathematics are just models. We're not mathematics. You can describe most of the stuff about us without creating any mathematical model. Darwin didn't need any math to explain the concept of evolution. So it's not like I'm against math, but I'm just saying it's not necessary to describe mechanism. Describe, well, look, there's a big wheel and there's a little wheel and the two wheels grind together. You don't need to know the mathematical relationship of the two wheels. You don't even know how many new teeth are on them. You don't have to know any of that stuff to describe the function. Describe a watch. You could describe a watch's function, the gear work, what gear does what. You don't have to apply any math, and you'll accurately convey the understanding. But again, there's nothing. It's nice to have something solid like math, but there's no math where you go, now add in bent space, or now add in bent time. Bent time is just a relationship written into it about how velocity will end up degrading the measurement of time, essentially, or the function of a material object. It'll functions in a slower frame, but it's not really, the frame isn't the slow motion frame. I'm arguing the metabolism is slow. The clock moves slower because the clock functions slower, because its atoms are moving slower, because it's moving. It's having to do something else. So that's illogical. So I'm just saying I don't need to redo the math. The relationship still exists. There's a proportional relationship to what proportion of you is being distracted by movement. So the more velocity you have as matter, the more you're like a light beam, and the less you're like a solid building. And that's just it. You know, simple. And the rest of it is just understanding abstract things like the fact that there's more velocity on the surface of the Earth than there is in orbit. You know, because on the surface of the Earth you have more gravity, so you're bouncing faster. And that means more movement. That means more distance. That means your real velocity is higher than you think. What else? I mean, these are simple things. Like I said, I don't need to change much math. I mean, the math I think I'm going to change is I'm going to obviously point out that light only has mass in one direction, the direction it's going. This is the pointing thing. So it only has mass in the direction it's going. Orbiting things like our matter, atoms have orbits. Orbits have directionality in all directions, so they have mass in all directions of a dimension. And that's a different kind of mass. Unidirectional mass, one directional mass. So you can affect things with gravity that have unidirectional mass because they have things moving perpendicular to the direction you're going. But you can't hit a photon from the side at all, no hope at all, because it doesn't have a perpendicular side. You can't push it sideways because it has no dimensionality sideways. It only has mass forward. So obviously I would be changing Einstein's equations and going, it's just pointing, you know, like I say, you just arbitrarily picked a mass for light, so it's not even like it's a serious equation anyway. But I'm just saying, the lensing will never be demonstrated to be an absolute fact in the sense that gravity bending light. Atmospheres bending light, yes. Gravity bending light, no. Slits bending light, yes, but they're not really bending it, they're refracting it, they're diffracting it, refracting it. Big difference. You know, that brings up, see, I mean, all these crazy people and stuff, you know, was that the angry photographer guy just did a video where he's playing with his magnet with a prism and the light that comes out of it, and he's bending the light. No chance that that's happening, and he's making the video like somebody with some knowledge of science should think that's possible. I mean, if they could bend light, I mean, seriously, there's so many applications for bending light, you know, that would be all over the place, you know, so it's, you know, obviously you can't bend light with magnets. But anyway, it's just so irritating. You know, people just, you can't get them to You can't get them nailed to a foundation from which you can have any kind of rational conversation, because they'll just keep changing the premises. Imperial just keeps changing the language itself. Makes up new definitions for what a free is. Yeah. A free is not a completely nailed to the floor. So unless something's entirely nailed to the floor and can't breathe and can't do anything, I mean totally every inch of them is nailed to something, then you're free. So as long as you have any freedom, you're free. Any sense. But anyway, this is no point. It's just sorry. I'm just not doing very well. So I just feel like I'm just mumbling my way through this video. So anyway, let's do a little Anticonabot and just say goodnight. He's wearing his tough man hat. Yes, he's going sailing or something. Boating.
I was asked a question in the comment section of my previous video.
Cod fishing.
I'm rather surprised it took someone so long to ask me in this series.
Blah, 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 blah.
Is it ever moral, I guess? Is it ever a good thing, I suppose, is the question, to do a child to death in a particularly brutal way, painful and sexual?
Is it ever good? Somebody had to ask that? You were surprised nobody asked you sooner? That's a good thing? Lots of room for profit there, I'm sure. I mean, yeah. Oh yeah, torture is always profitable.
Violence. Well, that's a good question to ask somebody like me, because I'm a new father with all the incredibly strong protective instincts that flow from that.
Oh, bullshit. I mean, really, I don't buy it for a minute that you have any capacity to be at all empathetic or protective. You're going to I sincerely feel sorry for your spawn.
Now, there's a number of ways you can approach that kind of question, and what someone is attempting to do, I suppose, is to question a position of supposed moral ambiguity, or to posit a position of moral absoluteness, moral clarity.
So again, I don't know. So this moral word keeps coming up, and he's supposed to be basically conversing, I think, mostly with atheists, and I don't know why they all feel like this word is a useful word. Like it's written on a stone somewhere, that we don't have to deduce the fact that torture be bad. And yeah, it's not a very hard deduction, right? You experience a little bit of this pain and suffering thing, you say, oh yeah, that's no good. And it's no good in some sort of rationally absolute sense, that it isn't good if it's in somebody else. I mean, it's not like, oh yeah, feeling horrible is really fun when it's in somebody else's head. No, you don't think that. So why is this at all complicated? I don't know. I just don't get this at all. Just looking through the comments to see what kind of crazy fucks are playing with this asshole. The old one. Anyway.
Where you come up with something that is just so heinous that it merits the title of immoral, or evil, or hate-worthy.
Are wrong, are inefficient, are unproductive, are insensibly stupid.
It's an anathema. It's something you simply cannot have. It's haram in every way.
Oh, whatever, haram. We always have to put this back into some sort of ignorant third world language. Yeah. I wish there was something unacceptable. Clearly, we accept anything. Clearly. I mean, look, okay, people are going, hey, did you know there's 64 people have as much wealth as 3.5 billion people on Earth? Isn't that horrible? Isn't that all? That's just unacceptable. No, he'll be accepted. It's perfectly accepted.
Possible way. No, forbidden. Now, I would approach that from many different angles, but the first one I suppose I would come up with is, okay, let's say that it is an immoral act. How immoral is it? How evil an act is that, dude?
Torture? Yeah, I could argue that you suspend the whole game if there's torture happening. So, yeah, if you're watching the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden over there you notice that, you know, the guy's putting air in and out of the balls or something. They're torturing each other, you know, by sticking steel pokers in each other's noses and wiggling them in each other's brains or something. And this is the price of football somehow. Every game this happens. So, yeah, you say, yeah, it's just too damn expensive. I mean, really, I mean, look, we know little kids get paralyzed playing pee-wee football. I mean, can anybody really say, oh, it's worth it? So cool, worth it. No way, yeah, sure. So, yeah, I say suspend the whole thing right there. Yeah, too expensive. I mean, you know, as long as you're not the victim, right? I guess that's all you're saying. You would, so you're such a great Jesus Christ that if I put you on the torture gurney and I torture you forever, so the rest of the human race can play monkey games, right? Hopscotch and go to Walmart and all that stuff. Right, and be fat. You know, do all kinds of stupid things. Wear stupid hats and paint ceilings. And I'm torturing you. You're being tortured. So as long as the humans are going to Walmart, you get tortured. You're so much of a Jesus Christ that you'd say, yes, I'll accept that pain. That's what you would tell me if I was Dr. Mengele and I'm imposing the torture every day to keep the human race alive. I wonder. And I wonder if it was your son and not you. And you had to sit and just watch him all day. You didn't get to go to Walmart. You just had to watch your son being tortured every day, over and over, and just horribly, awfully, the worst imaginable, possible human centipede kind of tortures endured. And you'd say it's all worth it, so all those little other scumbags can go to Walmart and die of cancer.
To have done something like that. How should we react to that? Is that an act that is so evil that we have to say that it is in and of itself an evil act? And
I don't even. Why would I even have to say it? It's just so obvious, right? It's like saying the sun is very sunny. I don't have to say that, right? I don't have to inform you that the sun is very sunny or the earth is very earthy or any. I don't have to do that, do I? Torturing child for sexual gratification is bad. I shouldn't have to say that, should I? I really shouldn't have to, should I?
And how do we deal with the fact that it is an evil act, and in all circumstances, and in no circumstances can it be morally justified or morally explained?
Well, why do you have to go that far? There probably are circumstances. Once again, if you can prevent the rape of a child by, 10 children by raping one child, well, okay, then you rape the child, god damn it.
Or morally mitigated. What do we do about such acts? Okay, we prescribe them. That's my view.
We prescribe them. No, we make the understanding kind of obvious that people really, deterrence does work. So you establish a nice, nasty punishment for getting caught stealing the baby pussy. And, what's so complicated? Not great choices we have. It's the only real choice we have, except for just cutting everybody's heads off at birth. I'm for that, by the way, but, just saying.
Laws, and we throw people in jail, or we kill them if we've decided that's how we're going to deal with it, or we punish them in however way we as a society deem necessary.
We create deterrence, right? So instead of saying we create deterrence for the crime, he says all this shit, right? So that's being honest and fair to the mission statement. The mission statement is, we just do silly, stupid things, like throw up on them or something. No, we try to deter the behavior. That's our only weapon, deterrence. Do we have some other weapon besides control freakery, where we just cut all the penises off at birth?
To punish such people. To both make them pay for what they did and prevent them from doing it again. And
and just, I mean, so just ignore the most important part. I really don't think anybody gave a shit about stopping Bundy from ever doing it again. That was like, no, I don't want another Bundy to be thinking they can get away with it. I mean, once you've caught the criminal, you're not that afraid of them anymore. I don't think. Especially the heinous criminal, because you know they're never getting out of jail. I mean, you kill them because they're just useless bugs and they don't deserve any better, and it's just silly to waste $1 million or more keeping them alive for 20 or 30 years in prison. $1 million or more, like a lot more sometimes. Maybe $5 million. You should spend $5 million to keep a fucking cockroach alive, a menace, a piece of shit, while perfectly good humans drop dead for the lack of $50. That makes sense. No, that would be fucked-hearted.
Protecting society. We just throw them into something called prison, which is essentially just a garbage dump, a sort of quarantine area where we put all the bad people in our...
Yeah, well, we ought to cut their nuts off, and we ought to do, whatever it takes, frankly. I mean, for some crimes, I mean, yeah, just whatever it takes to deter it, just to let them know, if you get caught doing this, you're going to get so fucked up, brother. We're going to foobar you all over the place. And yeah, I mean, torturing and killing children is probably one of those things where you just say, you're just not worth it, fucker. How could you possibly think you're entitled to do that? That your stupid, cheese-eating gratification could possibly be worth it?
Society. Or all the people that we just want out of circulation. Just want to protect ourselves against.
Our wish never existed. Better never to have been born. Yeah, it would have been better if Casey and Bundy and... go down the list and make the list as long as it would have never been fucking goddamn conceived in the first place.
But how immoral is that? Okay, well, I made a video years ago about a guy who had said that this is why I left Islam, and one of the main reasons was this idea of an eternal damnation in Islam, which is really sort of heavily emphasized in the Quran. It's heavily emphasized in the Bible as well, or at least in some people's view of the Bible, if you've ever seen
right, for a bunch of silly crimes. Yeah, but, whatever. I mean, if it was for real crimes, I guess I'd say, well, that probably makes sense. Let's do that. If there's some way to keep them alive forever and torture them so we deter the crime, well, let's do that. If it prevents one, that's all it takes, really, when you think about it. Once you prevent one future crime, you've kind of paid for it.
Or something like this. All these fundamentalist evangelical types are really huge on Satan and hell and everything. And straight as the gate, narrows the way.
Again, so this all has something to do with, right, just being against the idea of, like I said, deterrence never comes up in this. This is like nobody is ever prevented from committing crime. Again, I don't know how to tell you this, but really, frankly, I would be a mass murderer if there wasn't a law against it. It's a fact. I think I could really love killing shitty people. It would just be fun as fuck. I would enjoy it, and it would, I hate to say that. I mean, I would be personally gratified and thoroughly enjoy being a good janitor and cleaning up. All right, killing some nice spammers and hackers and all this, all the little shoplift, all the little petty criminals as well as the horrible, all the ones who basically just don't get it. Okay, that stealing from another sentient being, its comfort and welfare, is no business to be in. If that's what your business, you should be out of business, fucker. You either try to make a contribution, and I don't mind you failing, but if you're not trying, and you're trying to do exactly the opposite, which is steal somebody else's welfare, yeah, then fuck you. I mean, but whatever. 'Just saying, deterrence works. I'm proof of it.
way type thing, or however it goes. Um, what could you actually do in terms of a sin or an immoral act that would merit being damned for all eternity? You don't. At no point do you even cease to exist. You just keep suffering there forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Well, right. Again, there would be no point because you don't get the idea of deterrence again, right? So if there's nobody to witness you being tortured forever and they're not going to be changed in their behavior or say, damn, I'm sure as fuck not jaywalking, torture forever. Look at that guy. Oh, man, I am not doing that. I am not being that stupid. You know, it's sort of like you can see somebody like, I'm sure some people see people like emphysema or something, and they got oxygen tubes and all this shit, and they go, oh, fuck, I ain't smoking, this or that. Didn't work for me, but I mean, it does work for some people. I mean, sometimes deterrence doesn't work because you just don't really associate yourself with the circumstance, and you just figure, well, I know how to pull a trigger on a shotgun, so I'm not gonna be in that mess anyway. I'll figure out some way to make my brain stop working before I do that.
Ever. Without end. That is what I would presume we would do with someone who is pure evil.
So again, these conversations they just don't have anything to do with anything like a serious, intellectual, rational, you know, let's talk about things in kind of scientific way. It's just some silly mischaracterization of reality for the purpose of you know, drawing a fake picture. It's all just straw, so he can pretend, you know, the right answer is mind your own business and let me get on with fucking your wife and killing your kids.
Damn them for all eternity so they suffer forever. But then it asks the question, you know, you sort of...
Oh, look, Eve is still in hell, technically, right? I mean, so yeah, it's just really dumb. There's really no point. Because no one's learning a lesson from her sin, right? I mean, really nobody's walking around saying, oh, yeah, I can't do that knowledge tree thing. You know what I mean? It's not very relevant anymore. I'm sure no one's being productively deterred from bad behavior by Eve being tortured in hell.
To ask yourself, did they create their own nature? Did they decide, did they wake up one morning and say, I think I will become evil forever?
Again, it just doesn't matter. I don't know why that even enters the conversation. I mean, clearly it's a fundamental non-function. You know, whether the non-function is, well, they talked to their dog and believed what their dog was telling them, or, you know, I mean, but you're still going, I mean, fuck, if you can't add 1 + 1 and get the right answer... we don't let people drive cars if they don't answer some questions right? I mean, there's a lot of simple things in this world you're not going to be allowed to do if you can't do a few performance issues. I'm just saying, so these are just performance issues. But clearly, again, you're just ignoring the mechanism's basic function, which is deterrence.
And they have that choice every second of their life forever, saying, I am consciously going to opt to be an immoral agent.
No, they consciously opt to say, okay, I see that you do catch criminals now and then and treat them badly, but I'm too smart for you. So, game on. I'm going to try to steal the candy from the baby. And let's see if you can stop me if you can. And yeah, maybe if they're Hannibal Lecter, they'll get away with it. But if they're not, yeah, then they're just going to be fodder for the deterrence machine.
Agent here. My choice is forever to be a jerk and to be a bad person and to be worthy of being damned to hell here forever.
Well, whatever. No, you should just be shot in the fucking head. Again, if you can't, look, I mean, these are simple. Like I said, 1 + 1. If you're 18 years old, you can't figure out 1 + 1, we shoot you in the fucking head. It's not complicated.
I don't think that the idea of eternal damnation makes sense from any possible angle, especially from the angle of justice, I suppose, or the angle of good versus evil or morality. What act could you...
But again, it's what justice is there in torturing a victim? Again, you keep presuming that you have the right. You've just imposed life on someone without asking their consent. And so any torture they may incur can be the worst kind, which was, I didn't put any money in this vending machine at all. What right do you have to me, to do anything to me? So, I mean, you don't even get that. That the real violation is in the sense that, yeah, well, if you get on the football field and you end up with a concussion and then you go on TV and start crying, yeah, I mean, that's pretty fucking lame. I mean, it's really fucking lame. So, I mean, there's a certain, yeah, you played the game, you got to pay the price. But you don't, the people who didn't ask to play the game are the ones you're making pay prices. And that's really offensive.
Possibly commit that would make you fundamentally immoral.
Well, a crime you can't fix. I mean, don't you can't understand that you can't give it back? You can't give back somebody, you can't fix torture, you can't go after the torture and say, oh, well, let me rub that off and let me clean that up. You can't clean it up. It's done. You don't get that? I mean, it is something that is just horrible. I'm not, like I said, I'm making no argument for suspending somebody in some place and then torturing them for torturing. I'm just saying that there's no reason to have any reason to think they deserve anything or are entitled to anything. So yeah, shoot them in the head.
As I say, you take Hitler. Let's say 40 million people.
Yeah, shoot him in the head. Fuck it.
Those are the casualties of the Second World War. Throw in another 10 million when it comes to all the various holocausts that took place in Europe. Perhaps more than that. Perhaps a lot more than that.
Yeah, so what's the point is, yeah, you played for a win and you lost, and then you shoot yourself. He shot himself in the head, right? So what's the big deal? He figured it out.
And just for good measure, we'll multiply that by 10. Or 100. Or 1,000, or whatever you want to do, whatever number you want to.
Again, I don't know who you're arguing with. There is no such thing as forever damnation. We don't have any. We don't have prison infinity. So what is this stupid argument about? And what we do have, though, is real expenses to pay. Prisoners aren't free to keep alive and comfortable and to preserve their welfare. It's expensive. And who's paying the price? Oh, that's right, all the innocent people who never did a wrong thing, who are going to be ground up by the machinery over $50. They're not going to be given a hard hat. And so they're going to end up with a brick in their head and dead. Or brain damage forever. Or crippled. Or paralyzed. Because their parents couldn't afford a good enough shoulder pads or whatever. Yeah. So we can keep prisoners alive.
Here. You toss Hitler into the fiery pit for 100 million lives. 100 billion lives.
Alright, there's no fiery pit. So this, again, what is this about anyway? Was there an election somewhere? Did somebody vote for Hitler in the fiery pit?
Whatever you want. Take your pick. Just make sure it's just a finite number. Has he paid for what he's done? Has our proverbial child rapist paid for what he or she is?
Well, like I said, they can't pay for it. They can't undo it. There's no undo button, so there's nothing you can do. The only way you can pay for it is to prevent something equally bad. And that's what they're in prison doing. That's what they're actually doing, is they're preventing someone else from making their mistake by demonstrating, ooh, look what happens to you when you make this mistake. See? So they actually are paying for it by preventing a future criminal from being as dumb as them.
Done. When do we say the punishment has fit the crime? When do we say that you're now a whole...
Again, the minute they save more than they killed, I guess we say, good job, fucker. You know, it's just the truth. Look, you drown one person, you save 3 people from drowning. you just got to admit that it's pretty good.
Whole person again. Is that even possible for someone to be a whole person again?
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's drunk driver. Then he prevents somebody from killing people, while drunk, and he actually does it. He prevents somebody from drinking and driving, and they would have killed somebody or injured them horribly, paralyzed them. Paid for it. Yep.
Isn't that the problem of evil? It's really so hard to actually find it and pin it down.
So that's what you people think, huh? You idiots. You think it's hard to figure out bad behavior, and it's hard to figure out. Well, our only real recourse is to try to prevent that, because that's a bad thing, and you can't clean it up. You can't take a bullet out of people's heads, and undo the blown up skull. You can't do it. You can't unparalyze them. And even if you could, right, it would be still a horror on the patient. I mean, they have to go through the horrible process of becoming paralyzed, and then the probably horrible procedure of becoming unparalyzed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you give somebody cancer, and then you could cure them of cancer, but that wouldn't sound like a bargain, right? Disgusting evil smile.
I was asked a question.
Anyway, so enough of that. That was just horrible. So again, just this preposterously uneven, unfair framing of reality. So a discussion about criminal justice, and not even once did he mention the word deterrence. Not once. I can just keep appealing to reasonableness somewhere, but it's just all I can say is that's not reasonable. And you assholes who are supporting unreasonable philosophical discussion, probably should be shot. God, bullets are cheap, mostly. Anyway, that's enough. So, till next time, such. Bouncing a little. Yeah, this camera's not too good at that, so I better not do that. Sorry. Till next time.